Hello, boils and ghouls. You are now tuned in to PVD Horror Podcast. Pleasant screams.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to PVD Horror Podcast. I'm Dave. I'm joined with my co-host, Brandon. And boy, oh boy, do we have a good one for you today. This is an episode that we wanted to put on for quite a while. Joining us today is actor Kevin Van Hentenryck, which many of you will know from the 1982 cult classic Basket Case. So Basket Case is one of our favorites, and we had the honor of screening it in front of an audience here in Rhode Island, which was super well received. And we just were so excited to be able to have you on. Kevin, thank you for spending some time with us this evening.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So Kevin, one of the interesting things that I've read about you, and maybe you can elaborate on this a little bit, is I read that you started acting when you were actually in like 10th grade. And I was just curious, what kind of production was that? And, what made you get involved in the first place? And how did you feel after? Like, how did you know that this is what you should be doing?
Well, the story is I had a crush on a girl in, I don't know, algebra class or something. And at the end of the class one day, I saw her talking to her name was Cindy. She was talking to the teacher at the door on the way out after class. And he was asking her how the play was going. So I thought, I'll get in a play. That way I can get to know Cindy. Well, it turned out that was her last play, but it kind of stuck with me.
Okay. Oh, so you got into it for a girl, but you stayed in it for the love of acting.
Well, the play that I heard them talking about was her last play. And the next play, which was the one I joined, she wasn't even there, but I liked it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it stuck. Yeah, there you go.
Now, Kevin, in 1972, the film Savage Messiah, directed by Ken Russell, was released. You mentioned that the film had an impact on you, impact on you, and you described it as a life-changing experience. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I was going to school at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and at that time, the Little Carnegie Cinema, which was around the corner from Carnegie Hall, was like an art house cinema. They would play like Ingmar Bergman festivals and Fellini festivals, and so they were showing this old Ken Russell film called The Savage Messiah, which is about a real sculptor, Henri Gautier, who lived at the time of World War I. Mm-hmm. In the course of the film, they showed a close-up of a real carver's hands working a block of stone. Okay. And I was so turned on to and by the idea of a rock as a plastic medium. And as it turned out, there was a sculpture supply place, the Sculpture House, which was literally half a block away from the school. So I started I'd walk back and forth, look in the window and try to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And then I'd walk in and walk around and try to figure it out. Finally, when I had saved up what I hoped was enough money and worked my nerve up, I went in, tortured some poor stealth girl with every question I could think of about stone carving, and walked out with a hammer and 3 basic plain steel chisels. Found a rock in the East Village. I set up a workbench under the elevated railroad track at like 11th and 30th. In those days, it was an abandoned, derelict kind of neighborhood.
Okay.
And that kept me out of the weather. Now it's called the High Line, and it's completely different than when I worked there.
Yeah.
So anyways, the first moment that I touched steel to stone, I had this incredible epiphany or revelation that this was what I was meant to do. And that moment has powered me to this day.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, and like when we met you, you had handed us a pamphlet.
Oh, the brochure.
The brochure, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And I wasn't aware that that was something that you've been doing, and it's so impressive. I saw on your website there's some samples of your work. I mean, I'm really intrigued to hear about this more. Like you said, like it felt like it was your calling. What about sculpting is it that you love, and what do you get out of it?
Well, materials have a presence, all right? They have something like cheap plastic, it has a cheap temporary man-made presence. Glass, a little more solid, but it's still cold and man-made. Steel is the same. It's much more, it has a greater strength, mechanical strength, but it's still cold and it's man-made. But everybody, when you walk along the beach, you see a pretty stone, you pick it up.
Yeah.
And or you might have an emerald or a diamond in a ring, jewelry, pearls. And what we're really responding to is the presence of the material, which comes from the way it was made. These materials, stone especially, and especially the igneous stones, granite, basalt, are produced over hundreds of millions of years in immense heat and pressure. And that's what we're really responding to. And they have incredible energy within them. And that's there's a moment where you get past the function of the tools and you start to get a feel for the stone. That's when you really start carving. And there's tremendous energy in the stone, and you get that back as you're working it.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you feel? I just got to ask you this follow-up question. How do you feel after you've been working on it? So you said like you get that energy back. How do you feel after a day of working on sculpting?
Usually pretty energized, though physically tired. But whole afternoons will flash by in dust and light, and leave you often knowing exactly what you're going to do tomorrow, and not can't wait for it.
Yeah.
So that's how I had already given up acting, in fact, in favor of sculpture when Frank called me with the idea for Basket Case. And of course, it was way too good to pass up. So the rest.
So he brought you back in.
Yep.
That's great.
That's cool. Now, you have a class in the summer sometimes. It's called the Hunter Stone Seminar. Can you tell listeners?
Stone Carving Seminar, yeah.
Okay, cool. Can you tell listeners a little bit about that and how they can get involved?
So there's a website, freehscs.com, stands for Hunter Stone Carving Seminar, freehscs.com. We have a Facebook page. This year, 24, was our 17th season, teaching free stone carving class on the mountaintop here in Hunter, New York, in the mountaintop region of the Catskill Mountains. And every year we have 100 or 150 so students pass through, several hundred visitors. We're there for 2 weeks. We've produced a sculpture class. We produced a sculpture park. The site of the class now has a park. There's 21 blocks of stone ranging from a few hundred pounds to 12 tons. And there's over 300 student carvings on permanent free public display. And some of them are really good. You go on the website, you can see some of it.
Yeah. That's so awesome. Anybody can sign up for this?
Yep, anybody. People can come. So our youngest carver was 4 years old.
That's awesome.
And, now what a 4-year-old conceives of to do is very different than what an adult might or a teenager might. But almost universally, it's not nearly as difficult as people think. The actual material removal is actually fairly rudimentary. It's the same process that humans have used for hundreds of thousands of years. It's an impact to the stone with a sharp object.
Mm-hmm.
We just have much better tools now.
Sure.
And most of the students that come through the class have never tried stone carving before. A lot of them will tell me I'm not artistic. I can't even draw a stick figure, right? You know what? Half an hour later, we get them a leaf, we trace it out, and they're carving and they're having fun.
That's cool.
That they never imagined they could do. And the interesting thing, we work in the local material here on the mountaintop is bluestone. Excuse me, which is really a blue-gray sandstone. And it's a very durable material. So even the scratches that the 4-year-old made can last hundreds of years outdoors with no maintenance.
Oh. We're going to have to come down and check out and take the seminar because this is something I definitely want to do.
I am so intrigued by all this. The more I hear you talk about it, the more I have to say, like, if you think about it, stone is one of the most underappreciated materials that we use because like it's needed for so many different things. It also has purpose and can be very beautiful, but yet we'll just like discard it and not really appreciate it the way that so hearing you talk about it actually is like shedding an appreciation on it that I had never really thought about, and it's like super intriguing. So thank you for sharing all this.
Thank you. Yeah, I say I look at blocks of stone like most people look at food.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, to be honest with you, I've only thought about rocks and things in like the form of like, how like some people will like tumble them. I was just holding on to one. I have like a rock that I held on to, kind of like a tribute thing, but
what kind of stuff?
I don't even know. It's like smooth. It's really hard to see the color actually. It's like a brownish, it's a tan color.
It looks like granite to me, but it's real hard to tell.
The color's a little off in this room, but I never really think about sculpting out of rocks because it feels like that. Like some of the students probably tell you, it feels like that would be a really difficult thing to do, and I don't. But like you're making it sound like we could, me and Brandon can go there and start sculpting away. So maybe we will.
You can. You should.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the entire planet is littered with incredible ancient ruins, impossibly large blocks of the hardest stone that exists, that the academics tell us were made by, natives with stone tools, which is not the case. So, there's a whole lost history on this planet of ancient architectural artifacts.
Yeah.
Well, not just Egypt.
Right.
Okay. Now, Kevin, on your website, you have a quote. It says, "What would you do if you knew you could not fail?" That definitely stuck with me and had me thinking about all the options. And I just want to know, how has that quote impacted your life till this day?
Well, when I was 19, I nearly killed myself in a motorcycle accident. I used to race dirt bikes, right? And so I've kind of really made a point to look at each moment since then as free bonus time, And that's kind of my motto. I think I saw it as used as like an advertisement in a perfume ad or something. But it's thank you for that. And it's one of those things, if you really think about it, why not? What is holding you back? Fear of success, fear of failure, it's too hard, I don't know, blah blah blah. It's a short trip. We're only here once in the history of existence. We're here once. Do it.
Nah.
Fear of making the wrong choice. A lot of people worry about that. And what they forget is just because you choose one path, even if that path doesn't work out, it doesn't mean all the other doors are closed. So, sometimes you just got to follow something through. And if it's not meant to be, then it's not like you can't find other options, or you don't know what opportunities are going to come along the way. I know Brandon and I, we're always kind of amazed at when we say yes to things, what other opportunities end up coming out of that opportunity that we took. So yeah, that's a great quote.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah. And you've spoken about living in Tribeca before it became the neighborhood it is today. Could you describe your life there before you chose to relocate?
I had a place in the East Village, and they were just starting to talk about Soho, which is the next neighborhood north from Tribeca. And you were seeing articles in the Village Voice or the Times, loft living, where you could have a big industrial space. And that was just starting to be a thing. And the neighborhood, it was changing really rapidly. And so I, like hundreds of other New Yorkers, thought that's really cool. So I found a place in the Village Voice that said it was both working and living space for artists. And I went down and looked at it. It was a cool space, had a freight elevator, opened right into the space, which is perfect for me. And I told the guy, I'm going to be here rehearsing my band and carving stone. It's loud, it's dusty. He's like, no problem. That's what this is for. Of course, he had told the people upstairs from me who wanted a nice, quiet retreat to write. So another, unfortunately, skanky landlord, but it was a great time to be in Tribeca.
A lot different now, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's complete. Well, so I was at 151 Hudson Street, which is the corner of Hubert Street, right across from the Holland Tunnel exit.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a parking lot across the street from me, south of me. So there was no building there. So my unit, 2R, got sunshine all day long, a view of the World Trade Towers. It was spectacular. Yeah. Now there's a high-rise building where that parking lot used to be, and that space is in shadow all day long.
Yeah.
Right moment.
Yeah.
Now, you're originally from Detroit, so here's a random question. Having made the move from Detroit to New York, what style of pizza do you prefer?
Double cheese. It's all good.
Yeah, double cheese.
It's all good. The cheesier, the better.
Yeah. So back in 2004, you portrayed Leatherface in a short film called The Catskills Chainsaw Redemption, showcasing a different side of the character. How did that project come together? Yeah.
This is a funny story. Okay, so in the Woodstock Times, there was an article, they were casting a film which is going to be shot around here in the Woodstock area. So I figured it's close, it's convenient. I don't have to run down to Manhattan. So I went, and they had this really cool antique chainsaw from the 50s. Very intense looking saw. It didn't run at the moment, but they asked me, they said, if this ran and this was your saw and you were going to start it, how would you start it? Well, I do my own firewood, so I work with a chainsaw all the time. You turn it on, you pull it a couple of times, and you start cutting.
Yeah.
But apparently, so when I first did that, they were watching me, and their faces went. So apparently, I was the first one they auditioned who actually knew how to use a chainsaw.
Right.
At the job.
So when you showed up on set, did they even know who you were? Did they know that you were from Basket Case or no?
Yeah, they checked that out afterwards.
Okay.
Afterwards.
After the audition, I'm sure they looked into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think they knew of me at the audition, but it was a couple of guys who had been writers for the Daily Show.
Okay.
And it was fun. It was a fun little film. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I was able to check it out on YouTube, so it was pretty cool. You know what I mean? Because it's
Yeah.
definitely a whole different take on things, from that you would normally do and what you would
Yeah.
see Leatherface. So it was really cool, being able to see yourself portray someone else. You had a mask on and just playing an icon at the same time, and then just kind of like just having fun. So that's what it was all about. And so, Dave, you should definitely check it out. It's on
Yeah,
YouTube.
I didn't know it was on YouTube, so that's good to
Yeah.
know. Cool.
But yeah,
And my daughter is in that, actually.
Oh,
My
your
youngest
brother?
plays the Lemonade Girl.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
It was funny too because like at the end of the credits, it said someone's marriage or something was kind of destroyed or something. What was that all about?
That I don't know. I don't know that story. I'm sorry.
No, okay. It had a little funny things in there. But Basket Case is like Dave said earlier, that's one of our favorite films. It's always stood out to us. In conversations about the film, I always bring it up. I watched that at a young age. A lot of people would say it would be inappropriate, but it was always a standout film because my
Yes.
grandmother
Bli-
my grandmother loved that film and it was one of her favorite of the
Grandma turned you on to it.
yeah, and I had told you that when we
Excellent.
had met, and so like it's cool. How's it till this day hearing all the positive feedback that people love this film and how it changed their life.
But one of the interesting parts about it is most of the people, when I do a convention, most of the people that come up to the table weren't born when we filmed it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is really cool. A project I worked on more than 40 years ago still resonates in this culture with, cell phones and computers and all.
yeah.
That's amazing. I'm blown away and honored by that
Yeah.
people like me. They like me.
Well, it's special, because the project is also included into the Museum of Modern Arts and the permanent collection in New York City.
Yeah.
Have you been able to stop by and check it out?
Yeah, they did when they first when the restoration was first finished, they did a
Mhm.
showing down there, and we went down for that.
Okay.
First time I'd seen a lot of these people in years.
Mm.
Edgar was no, Edgar wasn't there. Frank was there, of course.
Yeah.
The guy that we built the scenery in his loft, that was blanking out his name. I'm
Okay.
sorry,
That's
It's
all
all
right.
right.
but I have an Uji. That was his name, Latvian guy. Because the only set we built is the room and the hallway. And if you look,
Okay.
Mm,
both Beverly's room and the boys' room is the same room. Just
okay.
that was the set.
Was
One,
was the exterior of the building the same building you filmed in, or did you guys use
no,
a different exterior?
they were all over the place. When you see the exterior, the sign, when you see the sign, that's hanging off of the fire escape of my studio in Tribeca at 151 Hudson.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
When you see the manager's desk, that was a freight elevator on Franklin Street, I think, and I think the stairway was in the same building. I don't really remember anymore.
Wow.
So it was a
They,
composite of lots of places.
yeah, a lot. Because one time I went to New York and I went to visit like the filming location for Basket Case and for Maniac, because they weren't too far away from each other. And I don't know now. I got to look back and see what building I even went to, because I don't know if the building I went to was from the exterior or if it was maybe the inside of the apartment. But I'll have to look into that. I didn't realize it was all different, totally different places.
Yeah, yeah. We had started he had a hotel picked out that was like diagonally across from Madison Square Garden, but it was a pretty sketchy neighborhood in those days. Excuse me. And we had bums coming up saying, if you give me $50, I won't steal your cables. So
Mm.
that didn't quite work out.
Right. So obviously, it's great to be in a film, and like for Frank to be able to like pull you into this, you must have had the feeling like you were doing a film that felt maybe special or different or just intriguing. But like after this film was completed, did you ever think that, hey, this is gonna be a cult classic, or hey, people are, like this will be one that people will be talking about? Like what's it feel like to not just have been in a film, but been in a film that has had this longevity and has built this audience? Like I understand like it's what it must feel like to have the people come up, but like what is it that does that feel like it was an achievement? Like what did you feel about the film after you completed it?
Well, we filmed from, I think it was July of 79 to August of 80. And then there was a couple of years where they were doing post and trying to sell it, trying to market it. Came out in 82. And it was slow to catch on. It was a slow motion thing. They had cut the film. Frank was horrified, and it was not doing well.
Oh.
And Joe Bob Briggs um, was an early champion. He wanted to show it on. He had a drive-in movie show then, and he wanted to show it, but he wouldn't show a cut version. So Frank got him an uncut version, which he showed, and people started to respond then suddenly, and so the distributor, not being complete fools, just started quietly replacing the cut versions with the uncut versions, and suddenly it started to take off. We did 13 months at the Waverly. It has a midnight show. That was pretty fun to see. People in line and carrying baskets and doctors. It's the same thing that everyone did for Rocky Horror.
Yeah.
Who was there? They did the midnight show for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I think, much longer. But it was very cool, and it just, very slowly kind of built up over time.
Yeah, I had read that you had gone to a few of the midnight shows and you had disguised yourself. Like, how was that?
Well, I
Like,
looked different. When I saw it at the Waverly for the midnight show, I had shorter hair then and a mustache.
okay.
And, pretty sure the guy in front of me recognized me, but most people didn't.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. The audience was better than the film was. It was really cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Speaking of being recognized, one of the things that we had talked when we first met with you, you had mentioned, because I pointed out the cameo that we have in Brain Damage. And I mean, that's something I love, because I love when film universes start to, overlap. And you actually had said something that was super fascinating. So there was actually an intention initially for that cameo to be more than just a cameo, and to maybe have more involvement with the two film universes. Is that correct?
Well, Frank originally wanted both casts to cross. So him and Elmer would have shown up in Basket Case 2. The problem was that Screen Actors Guild rules at the time said that once you start an actor, you have to pay them continuously till they're wrapped. So we could only do one half of the crop.
Yeah.
But yeah, Frank was imagining a universe long before Marvel.
I would have given anything to see that universe. That it would have been the kind of universe we wanted to see.
Yeah.
Bilal and Elmer.
Oh my God.
That'd have been crazy.
Yeah.
So how did you end up meeting Frank anyway?
So in the film, Ilsa plays the social worker with the glasses.
No, okay.
So I was going to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and she was the assistant registrar there. And she said, I know this guy that makes movies. You should meet him. So I said, okay. So I went and met him, and I did 3 extra parts in Slash of the Knife, which was the film prior to Basket Case, Frank's film prior to Basket Case.
Mm.
And he liked the way I worked, and I was always on his case to use student actors. We need the experience, and a few months later, sometime later, he called me up with this idea for a film, and was I interested? And he performed the film on the phone. Camera moves and
Yeah.
the ambiance of each scene. And was I interested? Of course, that's way too good to pass up. For an actor to play two entities that believe they're one entity,
Yeah.
telepathically connected. That's a fantastic opportunity. It was very cool.
Yeah.
And so
So
Frank kind of stumbled onto an archetype with this. We all carry that dark half around with us.
mm,
Try to keep hidden, the shadow. And we all feel like misfits sometimes. So the film works.
yeah, definitely does. And it's funny because I had read that Frank also admits that he didn't really know what he was doing while making the film. Did he give off that vibe while filming?
Yeah. No, and
Uh,
that's not true.
okay.
So when, like, we spent a year making this.
Yeah.
The process was we do a few scenes until we ran out of money. Frank would do a rough assemblage, show it to people, get more money, and repeat. So you're working, trying to set up a shot and trying to figure out how to do it. And somebody say, well, why don't we do this? And Frank would say, no, they did that in, Demon Child from Mars. Oh, let's do it this way then. No, they did that. And he's like an encyclopedic source of information on the genre.
Yeah.
His apartment is filled with films. So another example. So we're filming, right? It's film, not, and 16 millimeter. So how do you get Belial to leap out of the basket at the camera?
Yeah.
So the solution is get an A-frame ladder. The camera hangs upside down from the A-frame ladder. Belial starts at the finished position, run him down and into the basket and slam the lid. You flop the film and run it in reverse.
Yeah.
That Frank came up with that.
That's genius.
That's awesome. Yeah, because that whole scene is just like nuts. And then like realizing like later they made it with like stop motion, and so there's just a lot of creative things that were just put into this project. And so like I said, I seen it at a young age, so kind of like learning more about this film as I'm older, it's just really special. I mean, I'm like really happy to have you on. So it really means a lot. So, and I want to know, like, how did you prepare yourself to take on the role as Dwayne Bradley?
Okay, so the difference, see, Frank comes from cinema exploitation, the Times Square films of the 70s, right, early 70s. I come from the theater, and so the theater is all about preparation because you have to do it over and over and over again, and it has to be the same every time you do it. Every night you have to give the same show. So the brothers believe they are one who's been cut in half. So whenever I had dialogue with Belial, I wrote out his side of the dialogue, so that you have it running. That it's just like doing a scene with someone else. The pauses have to be right. The reactions have to be appropriate. the basket. I used to weight the basket, except for the time where I dump them out in the hallway. So I couldn't weight it then because of the shot. So you have to give the basket that weight. Because people are always asking, well, what's it like to work with a little rubber thing? It's it's not that much different, really, because, for example, when I'm doing the scene with the old lady on the stairs, she's not really the old lady on the stairs. She's another actor playing that part. The suspension of disbelief is the starting point, and then you have to take the dialogue seriously.
Yeah.
You can't be making fun of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you have any thoughts about this. So for Basket Case, like you said, there's this entity that exists, and it kind of, I guess, represents, like you said, like the darker side of a person, of a human. And then in Brain Damage, we have Elmer, who's also kind of like a connected entity in some way, who represents something a little different, maybe that like instant gratification, that pleasure seeking. What is Frank's obsession with, like, this? I guess it's an obsession with like the duality of man in some way, which I think comes out a lot in horror. I talk about that a lot, but like the way he shows it is like very, he does it in a very literal way. Like there's an actual separate entity that's coming, and it's very like this hideous, gross looking thing. Has he ever like shared thoughts about that, or like why this theme comes up?
No, I haven't gotten into those kinds of specifics with Frank, especially for Brain Damage.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, at its very foundational level, you're telling a story, and if you don't have a good story to tell, all of the effects and tricks and blood and gore you can apply aren't going to do anything for you.
Yeah,
that's Frank's genius. He comes up with these stories that he can tell you. That's we're talking about hundreds of millions of years of evolution has brought us to this point, and we like stories. Sitting around a campfire, that's what is done.
yeah. I think it's great. I think that's one of the best things about horror, the horror genre, is you can use stories to tell, like, they have deeper, you can like tell a story with a lot of deeper meaning using visuals like Belial. It's like, where else can you do that and it actually like makes sense within the realm of what you're watching? Horror is kind of like special for that reason. We can represent things with like gross basket creatures, so it's kind of great.
Yeah, the analogy of it, the representational aspect, hopefully is universal.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, everyone on set had to take on multiple jobs due to the budget. A mold of your face was used and your voice was used to create Bilal. What other jobs did you find yourself doing on set?
A good one is in the scene where Belial is on top of the girl. That kind of freaked out a lot of the crew. And so we closed that set off, and it was just her, Frank. Frank was the hands.
Okay.
Because he was the only one who could fit into the Belial hands. So whenever you see the Belial hands, it's Frank. And I was doing, so the camera's going back and forth. That's me pulling focus on that particular scene. So we could do it with the skeleton crew.
Yeah. That's cool because it's like you hear all those stories now. It's like with Frank, whenever you would hear a woman walking in the film, it was him in high heels, or you know what I mean? And then like the story too about like with the money inside the hotel when you were like pulling it all out, that was like the film's budget. So it's just like really, like I said, it's like something special to kind of look back on, and how you made it happen with a skeleton crew. And so it's just like Dave said earlier, you can only do this in horror, you know what I mean, and get away with it. So
Yeah.
so it was
Yeah,
great.
yeah. And that, the 80s were an interesting moment
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And there was something else too. I heard like most of the credits that appear at the end of the film were fake. Did you have an opportunity to come up with some of the names?
No, it was Frank and Edgar did that.
No, okay.
Uh, so, Kevin, first off, like, just thank you so much for spending this time with us. This is
Oh, my pleasure.
really
So-
amazing.
So I wanted to, if people want to see my work,
Yes.
There you go.
Follow the graphic.
high tech, right?
Yep, there you go.
Oh, that's amazing. So for our listeners and our viewers, like yes, they should definitely check out your website. Is there anything other than the website that you would like them to check out? Are you anywhere else on social media or anything like that?
Well, I have a Facebook page under my name.
Yeah. Okay. So people can check that out. And
Yeah.
And just because we brought it up, and I think it's super fascinating. So maybe if there's listeners in your area or people want to like travel up to the area, it's actually only like probably 3.5 hours from us, if even. When did you say that big carving course seminar is?
Yeah, we usually shoot for early August.
Okay.
Again, this depends on, we won't know until about May if we even get the grant.
Gotcha. So it's kind of depending on that.
Yeah, if people are interested, after May, start either looking at the website or the Facebook page. And that once we know, it'll get posted. But we shoot for, second or third week in August.
Yeah.
Okay.
Weird question, but do you ever get any basket case fans that are just there because they're like, they just want to meet you and spend time with you doing something cool?
Yeah, but they carve as well. And
yeah.
That's cool.
They've done some really remarkable sculptures as well.
I can't think of too many people that like actors that we're familiar with that like have another hobby that's so intriguing that you could like spend time doing it with them. So I mean, this is kind of an awesome opportunity if people are into it. So yeah. All right. Well, Kevin, again, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you, and we appreciate what basket cases contributed to our lives. And it's cool to also know that the person involved in basket case, that like I said, when we met you, I was like, your face is just like it's the same. It's exactly the same. I see basket case, but like, it's cool to know that like the person involved in such a impactful film for us is also such like a good person and involved in some great work and doing things that are like, it's about art, but it's also about community building. And we appreciate that kind of stuff. So thank you for all of that.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
No problem.
So everybody, make sure you check out Kevin's website or follow him on Facebook. Check out those events. And if you haven't seen Basket Case and you're listening to this, what the hell are you doing? Watch Basket Case. Jeez. But yes, thank you, everybody. We'll be back next week with another episode. Have a great night.
What's in the basket?
Game over.